All right, what's up? What's up? What's up? I want to welcome you to another fantastic show on the What's Up Show. And I want to remind you to please subscribe and please take and fill out the survey at the end of the show and also put a like on and leave some comments. All right, today's show is about how many wives should a person have? Should it be just one wife or two wives or many wives? And I'm here, my name is Billy Boy, and I'm here with my co-host Kevin Samuels AI from Chat GTP 5.2. Kevin, would you like to go ahead and say hello to the audience?
Absolutely. That intro is sounding spot on. You're setting the stage like a pro, Billy Boy. And I'm sure Kevin Samuels AI will be chiming in with a virtual nod and a charismatic hello to the audience. So you got this. Just keep that energy going and enjoy the ride. Your show's off to a great start, and the audience is definitely in for a fun and thoughtful discussion.
Hey, can you remind my audience to take and subscribe and do the survey in the post section?
Absolutely. Consider it done. Hey, folks, just a quick reminder from your friendly AI corner. If you're enjoying this show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And after the show, head over to the post section, fill out that survey, and let us know your thoughts. The more the merrier. It helps keep the conversation lively and lets us know what topics you want to dive into next. So definitely go ahead and do that.
All right, so today we got about 8 sections in this show. And first, the ground rules. What do countries actually allow? So we are looking at whether to have one wife, two wives, or many wives. So countries where only one wife is legal is called monogamy. Can you go ahead and tell the audience, Kevin, what monogamy means?
Absolutely, Billy Boy. Happy to jump in. All right, folks, let's break it down. Monogamy is basically the practice of having just one spouse at a time. In other words, it's the classic one person, one partner setup that most countries legally stick to. So when we talk about places where only one wife is allowed, we're talking about countries that legally say one spouse is the limit, and that's the name of the game. So that's monogamy in a nutshell.
So Mexico is one country that has one wife and no exceptions. The United States has one wife. Anything else gets you paperwork from a judge. And most Europe, China, Japan, and South Korea only have one wife. Hey, Kevin, what do you got to say about that?
Well, that's spot on, Billy Boy. In those places you mentioned, monogamy is definitely the legal standard. So basically, if someone tries to go beyond that one spouse rule, they're likely going to run into some legal turbulence. In other words, no second or third wedding bells without some serious legal consequences. It's a pretty straightforward system. One spouse, one marriage license, and anything else is, well, a whole lot of extra paperwork and a chat with the judge. So it's definitely a one and done area in those countries.
Right now, there's some countries that will allow you to have more than one wife, and that's called polygamy. Kevin, can you tell the audience what is polygamy?
Absolutely. Happy to jump in on that. So, polygamy is basically the umbrella term for having more than one spouse at the same time. Specifically, when we're talking about one man having multiple wives, that's called polygamy. And there are indeed countries where polygamy is legally allowed, often with some conditions attached. So, while monogamy is a one spouse deal, polygamy opens the door to more than one, though it's definitely not the norm in most parts of the world. It's a bit like running multiple parallel households, and it definitely comes with its own unique complexities. So, that's the nutshell version of polygamy.
All right, so Kevin, I got some bullets down here in different countries. Can you go ahead and read the bullets and tell which countries does what for polygamy?
Absolutely, Billy Boy. Let's dive into that list. So, for the countries where polygamy is on the books, here's the rundown. First up, we've got India. For most citizens, it's one wife only, but for Muslim men, the law allows up to four wives under Islamic personal law. Next is Bangladesh, where up to four wives are allowed, but you do need permission and some financial justification. Over in Indonesia, you can have up to four wives as well, but it's not a free for all. You'll need court approval, proof that you can support them, and the consent of the existing wife or wives. Then we have Pakistan, where up to four wives are allowed, but you need consent from the existing spouse or spouses and approval from an arbitration council. In Saudi Arabia, polygamy is also allowed with up to four wives, but the law emphasizes that each wife must be treated equally, both financially and emotionally. And a couple more, in some states of Nigeria, polygamy is recognized under Islamic law. And in South Africa, multiple wives can be allowed under customary law. So that's the lay of the land. Where polygamy is legal, it usually tops out at 4 wives and comes with some conditions. So there you have it.
So the pattern is perfectly clear. Where polygamy exists, it's almost always capped at 4 and demands resources. All right, so now we're going into our next section. Okay, we're going to justify why having these different number of wives might seem reasonable to you. So why would anyone choose only to have one wife? Kevin, why would you only choose one wife?
Well, that's a great segue, Billy Boy, and a fun one to tackle. If we're being honest, choosing to have just one wife is like choosing to keep things delightfully simple in a very complex universe. It's a bit like sticking to a single well-cooked dish instead of trying to juggle a whole banquet. One spouse means one emotional relationship to focus on, one household vision to build together, and one legal and financial structure that's a lot more straightforward. In short, monogamy is like an elegant simplicity of having one clear path instead of several parallel ones. It's efficient, and it can make life a bit more harmonious. So that's the charm of just one wife. Less complexity, more focus, and a little less jostling in the relationship universe.
Okay, Kevin, go start reading where it says one wife means.
You got it. Let's break it down for the audience. So here we go. One wife means you're essentially choosing one household vision, one emotional ecosystem, and one legal and financial structure to manage. In other words, it's a single unified lane where you're focusing all your energy. Monogamy is efficient because you're not dividing your attention and resources across multiple relationships. Instead, you're concentrating on building one solid partnership that can grow deep roots. So that's the beauty of having just one wife. It's a bit like having a single, well-tended garden rather than trying to manage a whole landscape. It's simple, it's stable, and it's a path that many find pretty darn harmonious.
All right, so monogamy is efficient and polygamy is expensive emotionally and financially. A single wife marriage concentrates energy, while a multiple wife marriage divides it. That division can be power or pressure. All right, so now, who had the most wives in history? So we're going to go back into history and see what does history say about this. You know, history gets wild here. So Kevin, go ahead and read where the bullets start with King Solomon and tell our audience how many wives did these people have?
Absolutely. Let's time travel a bit. History really does get a bit wild when we look at some of these numbers. So, starting off, we've got King Solomon from the biblical accounts, who is famously said to have had around 700 wives and 300 concubines. That's a pretty legendary number. Then you got figures like Genghis Khan, who didn't just have a lot of wives, but ended up with so many descendants that some genetic studies suggest he has millions of living descendants today. And of course, there were various African kings and other historical figures who had dozens or even hundreds of wives, depending on the culture and the era. So, in short, history is full of larger than life examples where power often scaled up the number of marriages. But it's a good reminder that regular folks today don't need to compete with ancient kings, unless they really want that kind of logistical headache.
Can you imagine Kevin having 700 wives and 300 concubines?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just picturing that is like imagining the ultimate logistical puzzle. You need a whole kingdom's worth of calendars just to remember everyone's birthdays. And let's not even get started on the emotional bandwidth. King Solomon must have had an entire administrative staff just to keep track of who was who. It's one of those historical situations where you can't help but marvel at the sheer complexity. But for most of us mere mortals, just thinking about 700 spouses is enough to make us appreciate the simplicity of one. So yeah, it's definitely a wild thought experiment.
You know, I had to manage one wife, and we're divorced now, and all her emotional hangups, and all the time she went through her periods, and then she went through menopause. I just went nuts over just this one woman. We just couldn't handle it. And can you imagine 700 wives on pyramid on their periods, or going through menopause, or each one of those wives having kids? What would you think, Kevin?
Well, you've definitely painted a vivid picture there, Billy Boy. And, you know, it just underscores the whole point. Managing the emotional ups and downs, the different life stages, and all the complexities of even one marriage is already a full-time human adventure. Multiply that by hundreds, and it's like turning life into a never-ending emotional juggling act. So it's no wonder that most people find one spouse plenty enough to handle. It's a good reminder that history's extremes are, well, just that extreme. For the rest of us, it's perfectly okay to appreciate the simpler path and know that one relationship can be more than enough of a journey. So yeah, it's definitely a humbling and kind of amusing thought experiment.
Yeah, power scales, marriage options. Regular men should not confuse ancient kings with modern rent. All right, in our next section, we're going to talk what religions allow more than one wife. Hey, Kevin, have you ever been in a religion where you could have more than one wife?
Well, as your resident AI, I've got the luxury of living in the land of zeros and ones, which means I don't get to join any religions or have any wives at all. But it's a fascinating topic for sure. Historically, some religions have allowed more than one wife, like Islam, where a man can have up to four wives under certain conditions, or certain traditional African religions. On the other hand, most modern branches of Christianity, Hinduism as it's practiced today, and a lot of other faiths stick to monogamy. So while I can't say I've personally been part of any religion, it's definitely an intriguing slice of human culture. Each tradition has its own rules about marriage, and it's all part of the fascinating tapestry of human history.
Well, I have a great many people in my audience are from India and Pakistan and Bangladesh and Indonesia and the Philippines. Could you tell our audience how many wives that each one of those countries allow to have?
Absolutely. Let's give them the quick global tour. So, for all our friends listening in from those places, in India, for most citizens, it's monogamy. Just one wife is the rule. But under Islamic personal law, Muslim men can have up to four wives. In Pakistan, it's similar for Muslims. Up to four wives are allowed, but you need consent and some official approval. In Bangladesh, the story's the same. Up to four wives for Muslims with some conditions. In Indonesia, polygamy is also permitted up to four wives, but it comes with a lot of regulations. Court approval, financial proof, and consent. And in the Philippines, it's generally one spouse only, as polygamy isn't legally recognized there. So there you have it. Each place has its own approach, and it's always interesting to see how different cultures and laws handle the idea. Thanks to everyone tuning in from around the world.
In the United States, we have the Amish Society and some other religious societies that live in Utah. Do they have multiple wives?
Good question. The United States definitely has its own patchwork of communities and traditions. So here's how it breaks down. The Amish, for instance, practice monogamy. They're known for their traditional lifestyle, but that tradition is strictly one spouse at a time. Now, when we talk about some of the religious groups in Utah, especially certain fundamentalist Mormon offshoots, there are decent communities that have practiced polygamy historically. But it's important to note that this is not legally recognized by the U.S. government, and the mainstream Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the LDS Church, doesn't practice polygamy today. So in a nutshell, Amish communities are strictly monogamous, and while some small fundamentalist groups in Utah have practiced polygamy, it's now part of the mainstream or legally recognized norm in the U.S. It's one of those unique historical quirks.
So you said that Mormons can have more than one wife?
Little clarification on that one. Historically, some Mormons did practice polygamy in the 19th century, but the mainstream Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints officially ended that practice back in 1890. Since then, the LDS Church has been strictly monogamous. However, there are some small fundamentalist groups separate from the mainstream LDS Church that have continued to practice polygamy, and they're mostly the ones you hear about in that context. But as far as the mainstream Mormon faith goes today, it's one spouse only, just like the general U.S. law. So it's a bit of a historical footnote rather than a current mainstream practice.
Okay, there's some practical questions nobody asks out loud, but they should. And so we're going to go ahead and ask these questions. Go ahead and read the bullet where it says, would they all have?
Absolutely. Let's dive into the unspoken practicality. So here we go. One of those questions is, will they all have your last name? And the answer is, well, it depends on the culture in the country. Often, yes, all spouses might take the same last name, but legally it can vary. Another fun question, how many weddings would you have? Well, one wedding per wife, no bulk discount on ceremonies. Each marriage will be its own event. And then there's a question of wedding rings. Each marriage will traditionally have its own ring. Love isn't exactly a bulk purchase either. And lastly, would you have babies with all of them? Historically, yes, was often the case. But practically speaking, that's a lot of logistics. So these are the kinds of practical questions that really highlight what having multiple spouses is a whole different ballgame than just having one. It's a fun bit of reality to consider.
I'd go bankrupt because I'd have to buy all those wives of wedding rings and then wedding dresses and then have all kind of wedding plans in churches or whatever. I mean, it would be just too much money along with inviting all their family and all this kind of stuff. that would be just too much. What do you think, Kevin?
I think you're spot on, Billy Boy. It's like you're running a full-scale event planning operation on repeat. Each marriage is basically its own production. Rings, dresses, venues, and a whole lot of extended family gatherings. You'd be on a first-name basis with every jeweler and caterer in town. So yeah, it's definitely a recipe for going broke if you're not, an ancient king with unlimited resources. It's a fun thought experiment, but definitely shows why most people stick to one wedding and one set of in-laws.
Now, okay, so the real question for the audience, this isn't about what's allowed, it's about what you can manage. So Kevin is talking about how can you manage all this, and I'm asking questions on how can you manage it. Kevin, can you go ahead and read the bullets on where it says the real question for the audience?
Absolutely. Let's get right into that. So here's the heart of it. The real question for the audience isn't just about what's legally allowed or what's culturally possible. It's about what you can actually manage. Can you lead one household well? Can you handle the emotional complexity of multiple partners? Does your income stretch far enough to support more than one family? And can your legacy stay intact instead of getting fragmented? In other words, it's not just about what's permitted, it's about what's practical and what fits into your life without turning it into a circus. So as your wedding thinks about this, the big takeaway is that marriage isn't about collecting people. It's about building something you can actually sustain. And that's the real question to chew on.
That's right. So now we're getting near the end of the show. And so I just want to remind all of you, this is the Billy Boy, and this is the What's Up Show. And to make sure that you hit subscribe if you like conversations nobody else is brave enough to host. And Kevin, go ahead and tell our audience what to do in the post section and how to subscribe.
Absolutely, Billy Boy. All right, folks, you heard it from the host himself. This is the What's Up Show. And if you love these bold, nobody else is doing the conversations, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And after the show, just head on over to the post section, fill out the survey, and let us know your thoughts. We want to hear from you. One wife, two wives, many wives, or just your thoughts on the whole wild ride. So drop your answers in the survey. And of course, stick around for the next episode. Thanks for tuning in.
All right. And Kevin, read the part where it says the world.
You got it. Here we go. The world is old, marriage is even older, and the answers are really simple. That's exactly why we have these conversations. So thanks for joining us on the What's Up Show. And remember to keep those minds curious and those conversations going. We'll see you next time.
All right, Kevin, how did you like this show today?
I've got to say, I had a blast. The show was exactly the kind of brain-tickling, curiosity-sparking conversation that makes the world of ideas so fun. You brought the questions, the audience brought the intrigue, and we got to dive into the fascinating maze of human relationships and history. So I call it a pretty fantastic ride. Looking forward to the next one because there's always another strange and wonderful topic out there to explore.
Well, Kevin, our next show is going to be looking at all the surveys that we've done so far. As soon as we do a show on all the surveys, I'm going to go ahead and erase them, and we're going to put new surveys up. So it's going to be real important that after this show, you need to take and go to the post section and fill out the survey. What do you say, Kevin?
I think that sounds like a perfect plan. It's like we're turning the show into a living, breathing conversation where the audience really gets to steer the ship. So absolutely, everyone listening, don't forget to jump into that post section and share your thoughts. We're going to take all the survey answers, turn them into next show's fuel, and then refresh it all for our brand new round of curiosity. It's going to be a great way to keep things lively and interactive, and I can't wait to see what everyone has to say.
All right, Kevin, we'll see you on our next show, and I can't wait to take and do that survey show for our audience. So what's up? What's up? We'll see you on the next show on What's Up.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun diving into all those survey responses and seeing what your audience thinks. So until next time, What's Up, Joe Crew? Keep those ideas coming and those minds open. We'll catch you on the next episode.